Hi, everyone, and welcome to another VisibleThread webinar. Really delighted to see everyone here. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm going to quickly kind of intro who's here, why we're here, what those logistics look like, and we'll dive on in to this content. So we're here today to talk about the SHIELD program. Now we have thousands of awardees. Now we kind of get to the hard stuff as those task orders come out. How do we win them? And I'm joined by Brian Lindholm here, who's going to take us through some of that kind of competitive dynamic. He has some really interesting thoughts to share with the group. So we're really fired up. Before I pass the baton to Brian, just a few quick things. I'm Kyle Peterson. I lead our account strategy and customer success team here at VisibleThread. A big part of my job is helping to educate and engage current VisibleThread users. I come from the aerospace industry. I was a former contracts manager at Sierra Nevada Corporation and Cobham, now Eaton. So this kind of environment, this topic is of course of great interest to me. And I certainly know enough to be dangerous. So just some logistics here I'm going to talk to the group about. One, we have more content. If you liked this webinar today, please do join us for our Optimize event. This is one of the premier kind of bid and proposal virtual events of the year. This is free to attend. You have an entire day of content you can sign up for. If you sign up, you'll receive recordings and all that good stuff if you can't attend live. We have virtual and in-person options there. There should be a registration link in the Teams chat. Other than that, logistical notes, you will receive a recording of this webinar. I always get that question, so I'll just get ahead of it. And then two, please do use that question and answer box early and often. When you submit those questions, I'll take a look. We will get through as many as we can at the end. So just know if you send one in the first 10 minutes, we're going to get to it, I promise. And Brian, Managing Principal of FedSavvy Strategies, I'll pass you the baton. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Kyle, and thanks for being here. I appreciate this. This is certainly to say, I think we live in interesting times and exciting times, would be putting it gently. And I appreciate this opportunity to work with VisibleThread to share with you some early observations and analysis and thoughts around. Of course, there is the SHIELD IDIQ that was finally resolved and is officially kicked off at the post-award conference as of last week. But really, the focus is Golden Dome. And Golden Dome, and I kind of have maybe an audacious statement up front. I think this is one of the largest defense contract opportunities we've seen in 20 years. And what we're going to talk through is why. Why is that the case? And the things to be thinking about as you go forward to try to monetize and make the most out of SHIELD, but also we're going to take a bigger picture look at Golden Dome as a whole, so not to be so myopically focused on just SHIELD, because that is simply a pathway to capitalize and become a part of this Golden Dome program. So here's what we're going to talk about today. Very briefly, what you should be focusing on right now, what to expect from Golden Dome. I've done some of the hard work, so some of you don't have to. And also to talk about developments in this environment around Golden Dome that will have a material impact on SHIELD and how you interact with these different customers. I'm going to paint a very, very brief picture about some of the noteworthy competitors, sort of who's who in the zoo. It is an extraordinary ecosystem of contractors, big and small, traditional, non-traditional. So we're just going to do a little bit of a dive into that, but I want to make you hopefully think about this with a little bit different sense of imagination and some next steps of how to make sure this award actually matters to you, because the time is ticking and the funds are there. So let's, without further ado, let's just jump right in. So this is me, very briefly. I'm not here to learn about my autobiography. I have done government contract work for 25 years, in the majority of that time doing competitive intelligence work. But I've got experience personally across, pick an agency out of a hat. I've worked some pursuit, whether it be defense, whether it be federal civilian, whether it be classified. I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, and have been a part of over $12 billion of prime contract wins. That is not talking IDIQ, we're talking actual real contract with real money into it. So done this a few times. So let's get into it. I'm really curious. Let's just start clicking on the screen here, folks, about did you win a SHIELD contract? I'm sure you're not here to hear my radio quality voice and my radio quality face. So you're here to learn something about what you might have been a part of. So just start click on that screen there. Did you win a SHIELD contract? Maybe you're just here because you're curious. So give you a few seconds to click those answers and let us know kind of where you're coming from.
And Brian's being quite literal, rightfully so. You can literally click on the screen, the yes or the no, and now I'm starting to see those questions come in. Well done, everyone.
Okay, perfect. So here we go. People click on the screen. So I'm sure people in this day and age are happy to click on things, as we're all conditioned to do so. Okay, well, not bad, not bad. All right, people are still getting in there. Okay, oh wow. Definitely engaging in the clicks, happiness. All right, let's just give a sample here to keep this moving along. So, okay, not surprising, most of you won a Shield contract, which there was not exactly an exclusive group, if we're honest about it. A lot of awardees are out there, but good to see that people are trying to focus on, okay, I've got this contract, well, what do I do next? So let's get a little bit more nerdy here. How many of you actually have real, no-kidding contracts with a military space agency? Missile Defense Agency, different parts of Space Force like Space Systems Command, Space Development Agency, et cetera, et cetera. Just start clicking on that. Do you actually have a legitimate contract with an agency doing military space work? So I'm not talking civil space or anything, just military space. So start clicking on there, and I'm not trying to shame anybody. There's a lot of people that are new to military space by way of SHIELD, but just trying to get a sense about who is in the audience right now actually working with a military space agency to support that extraordinary mission. Okay, people are getting in there and answering. Good stuff. Okay, we'll do a countdown 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll get going. So, all right, super. So let's just get a sample here. Okay, so the majority of you have not. Now, this does not surprise me, in all honesty. And the reason it does not surprise me is because when I looked at the SHIELD awardee list, all 3 tranches, the big nerd that I am looking at the spreadsheet all day long, pulled that in, and a lot of companies who were truly new to military space, not necessarily new to government contracting, but new to military space. And this is important because actually MDA, to their credit, they opened this up to have a wide aperture of new entrants to try to infuse new capabilities, ways of thinking, et cetera, around what is going to be Golden Dome. So speaking of which, let's just segue into this thing. This is going to be important. So what to expect, right? So as of right now, fiscal year 2026, there's been appropriated about $24 billion roughly for Golden Dome specific initiatives. Now, that is not a trivial amount of money. Now, the grand scheme of things for the defense budget as a whole, it is not a gigantic chunk of that, but $24 billion, I don't know about you, that to me is a lot of money, especially we are part way into a fiscal year, and that's been a new program. So that's a big deal. Of course, the SHIELD IDIQ with a huge ceiling, unprecedented, $151 billion. That's objectively crazy. I don't think I have ever seen an IDIQ with that ceiling, but it's important because it's reflective of the gravity of this, the enormity of the investment, and the enormity of effort it will take to create whatever Golden Dome is going to be in the reality. Now, I highlight that, and also the lifetime cost. So if any of you have done any research on Golden Dome, I'm sure some of you have done some research on it, there's a wide variety of estimates about what this is actually going to cost to create the vision of Golden Dome into reality. There's been estimates that have been 200 billion, 500 billion. It's all over the map, frankly. I actually took one from the American Enterprise Institute. The credit for them, really interesting analysis. They said 3.6 trillion to realize the total capability that's envisioned for Golden Dome. Now, the reason that we want to think about this is I get questions quite a lot, and I think justifiably so. Should I invest in this space? Should I bother? Or is this just another political flash in the pan that's going to go away in a year, right? So it looks like Doge, for example. It came in and then it blew up, and then we're not really seeing a lot of it anymore. It is something that I think actually is real. I really do believe that. I say that with a straight face. You look at the ceiling that's been dedicated to this vehicle, the funding already dedicated to it. And also, by the way, if you read the National Defense Authorization Act, like I did, because I'm just wired differently, I read those things. The way it's written and how it's been written into law, written into the missile defense strategy overall, This is very real. So there's a lot of momentum. And beyond that, it's Executive Order 14186, which was put out last year, set this also in motion. And this is the concepts behind Golden Dome aren't new. There's a lot of things that has already been planned for quite some time, but there was not the momentum, not the funding, and not the will to implement it. Now those forces are aligning. So in essence, there actually is a lot of positive headwind that's going to push this to become a reality. Now, what that becomes long-term, frankly, if you know that definitively, let's go to Las Vegas and make some serious money if you've got those kind of predictive skills. But I think the momentum is still very, very positive. So I'm actually pretty bullish on this one. Okay, so very quickly, for those of you who are new to this space, I'll keep this very brief. The idea behind Golden Dome is to emulate the concept of Israel's Iron Dome. I'm sure many of you have seen the news as they had several attacks from them in Iran to use that to deflect and destroy incoming missile attacks, which was reasonably successful in doing so. The same concept, the sort of comprehensive nationwide shield to protect against a variety of attacks. Now, obviously, our situation in Israel's are not the same. Our adversaries in Israel's are not the same. And also the number of different types of advanced threats that we're all facing is certainly not the same. So there's a number of newer technologies that we're just not really prepared for, to be quite frank with you. We don't have the good defenses against yet. This is intended to supercharge that. And I want to make sure I also emphasize, for those of you who are new to the space, there already are capabilities that exist. So we already have ballistic missile defense. We already have a lot of command and control that is going to be essential to build on. So there's a foundational element for a lot of these items that will get us there, but we have a lot to build on legacy technology to build in new capabilities to defeat new weapons and also have a more cohesive, more comprehensive defense posture. And I want to emphasize as well, before we move on here, that MDA, when I talk with a lot of people who are SHIELD awardees, they get very obsessed over MDA. That is a very myopic and narrow-minded view that I need to break you out of right now. That's what you're thinking about. MDA is the lead on this, but they are not, by any means, the only buyer. There's a lot more to it. So let's take a bigger picture view of what Golden Dome is and who's going to be buying. All right, so very briefly, I'm thinking of what SHIELD is. Most of you got the SHIELD award, which is great. It's a vehicle. I wanted to make you aware for situation awareness that there are other paths. That is not the only path. So let's just make sure we have a bigger picture understanding of this, what Golden Dome is going to be and how it's going to be bought. There's also other things like Noble MAA, which I call more mad science type of work. Really esoteric R&D, mad science to develop new things. SHIELD is a bit more in execution and development of things that are more near term, where Noble is a little bit more, I wouldn't say academic, but very much more, imagine a lot more lab coat being worn and Noble types of contracts. It's also geared toward non-traditionals and non-traditional contract methods to allow for that level of flexibility. So just bear that in mind. All right, so SHIELD awardees, this is not to take anything away from any of you, but it's not exactly an exclusive cloud. So I think it's important to be sober about this because you're going to have some competition. 2,440 awardees, I think 25 or 26 didn't make the cut. So most everyone who put in got it. I knew companies who were coaxed by MDA. You sure you wanted to say this? And then they got a chance to make some corrections. So MDA, to their credit, was trying to be welcoming to those who may not have been, let's say, typically used to these type of contracting processes. It is a gigantic scope. If you can dream it, you can do it. It's really that simple. There's a few exceptions. They encourage teaming. They are adamant, and they've actually reinforced this recently, that this is not for advisory services. This is for quote unquote doing, not advising. There may be ancillary advisory work that happens, but that's not the main event. They have other contracts for this. So if you're here to do advisory work, to be quite blunt, you're in the wrong spot. This is doing, this is execution, this is developing and deploying capabilities that we need to make this Golden Dome concept a reality. All right, so expectations. I think this is safe to assume that this could be a catch-all for Golden Dome types of contracts. This is very important to understand. It's not the end-all, be-all. It's not the only path, but it is a very credible catch-all. And when you think about how this has been situated, and NDA was very clear, they will not be the only buyer on Shield, by the way. They will administer it, but they're not the only buyer. So we need to think about who else is in military space that has a relevant mission and capability and fit into Golden Dome. I illustrate a couple of more prominent examples here. Space Systems Command, Space Development Agency, Army Space and Missile Defense Command, they will be involved. So to expect them to be a part of SHIELD, I think is reasonable. How much they will use it is frankly a bit up in the air. But just be cognizant. And I think it's also important in terms of other minor things to be aware of with SHIELD, but maybe very important to you, is as you work on SHIELD, do not expect for one moment that the majority of a contract will be mostly just like commercial IT services and products. That is not the focus of SHIELD. You can pick a contract out of a hat that does commercial IT. MDA has been very clear, this is not the focus. So you may have IT support that is ancillary, but is not the main event. So if you're here to sell commercial software services as your primary offering, you need to rethink about what you're doing and what your fit is and what you're going to pursue with SHIELD. So that will not be part of the equation. All right, so speaking of it, let's get a little bit deeper in the weeds here. What to expect and what should we expect in these competitions, right? So MDA has set up a PMO to run SHIELD, but that PMO is going to be more administrative in nature. They're not going to be doing the competitions themselves. That will be done by the ordering activities. And those ordering activities, whoever that may be, MDA, other parts of Space Force, et cetera, they dictate how the competition happens. I think the best analogy for many of us that people will understand is the way this has been structured, the way it's built right now, is it's operating a lot like a GSA multi-award schedule. Very loose. If you can dream it, you can do it. And it's up to the ordering agency to say, here's how my structure of the RFP is going to look like. Here's the cost types I'm going to use, cost plus, fixed price, whatever it may be. Here's how I'm going to do the evaluation criteria. Here's the actual award process I'm going to go through. Maybe I'll do orals. Maybe I'll do a SUE or a statement of work. I might do either one of those. This is so open that those agencies can dictate what they want to do that fits their style of buying and what they think they actually need to get whatever their services or products that they need to accomplish whatever task they're trying to fulfill. So what are the implications of this, though? Well, frankly, the ceiling itself makes it welcoming for any legacy primes who might say, I can move this to SHIELD and I can shape the procurement to be what I think I'd like it to be if the customer is so amenable. That's a pretty big capture implication from my perspective. And frankly, the way this is so open with the ceiling and there's so many different tasks type there and the competition is so open, you can basically bring work to SHIELD. And then it may not be by default some sort of sole source reward to you, but we all know how this game is played, folks. That if you can bring an opportunity to a vehicle and you can shape how it's going to be competed, you can shape how it's structured, then you have an inherent competitive advantage. That's just reality. I mean, I think unless you've been living under a rock, that you kind of know how this game is awesome played. So I think that's a good news story for SHIELD. So this is where being proactive and aggressive to chart your own destiny is important. And SHIELD is actually flexible enough that you can do that reliably. So bear that in mind. Don't be waiting for the phone to ring and respond to task orders. Because guess what? Probably someone's already got it wired, or at least they've got a leg up on you. You might pull off a Christmas miracle, but I don't count Christmas miracles for my business. So let's go into the picture about who those customers are. I'm only going to highlight a couple of them, but there's some very important facts here that I think we need to be very cognizant of. So MDA and Space Force, they're going to be the big buyers on this. That's just reality. Okay, so both of them are enjoying significant budget plus ups. This is not trivial. So MDA's budget goes up 27% over last year's funding. That's a lot of money. I don't know about you. That's a lot of money that got increased there. And the Space Force overall, which has already been growing leaps and bounds every year. If you look at their their budget year over year over year for the last couple of years. Their budget's been increasing steadily and reliably, and they just got a big supercharge. So we're talking almost 40 billion for their top line as of fiscal 2026, and the big part is a plus up from Golden Dome related funding. Now, MDA, I think this worthwhile. They tend to contract more of their budget out, where Space Force may do some self-performance or do some intra-agency funding. But I think that the positive market signal here is that both are enjoying budget, I wouldn't say surpluses, but significant increases. Of course, the pressure on them is to deliver, but they've got the funding to back it up. That's a good thing from a business development and growth perspective. So near-term targets, because again, I'm a nerd, I read these things, nothing quite like bedtime reading going through the National Defense Authorization Act. I know I'm wired differently. So there's a few things that I picked out of it that I think that actually bear consideration about how we should expect Golden Dome to play out, right? So there'll be an annual report required to Congress to say here's how things are going with quarterly updates until it gets fully operational, which won't happen for many, many years. Despite the political talk, there's no way this is fully operational in the next couple of years. Not happening. Will we get more? Yes. Will we get all the way there? No. So Congress has an expectation that they will be briefed on a more detailed systems architecture. Now, MDA has hinted at details around the systems architecture. And there's been a bit of friction between them and industry. Overall, MDA, Space Force, et cetera, about what this is going to look like. It's been more, if you need to know, you know. If you don't, then you don't know. I think we'll see if any more details leak on this. I think we're all wanting to know how this is going to look, because this affects how we approach business development, where we decide to go, where we think our fit might be. There's some specific notes that I think are also very important. There's already funds put aside for radar modernization, the systems modernization overall, the Aegis weapons system, of course, with the Navy, which is for theater defense, the ground-based missile defense system. And there's also other radars that are critical for early warning that are already going to enjoy significant funding plus-ups to modernize them. So we're very realistic here. And I think this is actually good to modernize what infrastructure we already have. That will be part of a near-term opportunity set. There will be expectation for a cybersecurity roadmap. This is important because unless you're living under a rock, I think we all are smart enough to realize that with what this is going to look like and what our adversaries can do, that cyber is a potential weak point. All it takes is a disruption for a few minutes or something else to make something very bad happen. So Congress, I think, is aware of this, and they have an expectation for a roadmap to be shared within the next, I believe, 30 days in terms of the cybersecurity roadmap and strategy to secure Golden Dome. There was an expectation for industrial base growth. Unless you've also not been following any sort of news, you've seen a very strong focus on industrial base growth. This is part of the national defense strategy, and that lasts of the four pillars of that. Very vague, but you've seen real investment from the Department of War, investing in businesses. You've seen contracts that are specifically to spur industrial growth and manufacturing capacity to bring it to be more domestic. So this is also in here because I think anyone who has any sense of how to make this audacious thing work, that we have to have a stronger industrial base than we have right now. That's also, I think we can see there's a broader array of contractors that are in SHIELD right now. So we're engaging the industrial base better, which I think is actually a good thing. I'll be critical when I think it's appropriate. I think it's a positive development. Specific interest around counter-UAS. If you're in that business, and oh man, it's a greenfield out there for you to do counter-UAS. This is a very real threat, and this is also something that's a bit of concern. How to enable better test and evaluation. If we're going to operate quickly and incorporate commercial capabilities into Golden Dome, we can't go through the laborious, very time-consuming, and sometimes oftenly maybe a little bit more bureaucratic than necessary test and evaluation process. This is something that came out of the NDAAs specifically to focus on how do we break those barriers down to field and test systems. And infrastructure upgrades. The Kwajalein Atoll, home of the Reagan test site, is significant for test and evaluation of new technologies related to this, and of course Guam, which has geographic strategic importance. So let's keep going here. A couple of observations. I don't want to be reading slides to you, as I think you can all read for yourself. I think that with the test and evaluation piece, and this is actually something the department has actually said, I think to their credit publicly, we need to be more accepting of risk. If any of you have done any bids or capture before, what is one of the Achilles heels? Risk. The evaluators smell risk, they go into the fetal position, and then your chances for reward go further and further down as you become risky. That appetite for taking on risk may be loosening up. It's going to take some cultural changes, I think, and some psychology changes. You can't just wave a magic wand and make policy changes. Then, oh, we're going to take more risk now. It's going to take some time, but that the groundwork to accept more risk, to move faster, iterate more, is definitely moving in that direction. There's already contracting in place right now, so that's not new. That'll be around satellites, ground to space networks, and vice versa. In basing and investing in AI, is that will be essential. There is no way this Golden Dome vision is executed without AI or autonomous systems. Will not happen, not physically possible. So that will be a focus. And certainly interceptors and investment in interceptors. One thing that I think is bear in consideration for our environment. I don't know about you, but I've noticed a significant uptick over the last couple of years of M&A around space or military space markets. Companies getting bought up for that capability, that they have some unique niche in military space. That is only going to accelerate. We have, in the government contract space, we have over 200 private equity firms playing, well over 200. And they're buying up companies and they're merging companies that have a niche in this. That's a very common theme. So I think we can expect to see M&A to really heat up. So what do we know? Very, very high level. This is what Golden Dome looks like, very high level architecture. So space layer, under upper layer, eliminatory defense down the ground to take to actually to kill weapons inbound. This is important to understand as of right now. This is a very high level concept. There's going to be a lot more detail that will come out as this gets refined. But I think I would impart upon you is to think about, where do I fit as business? Where might my solutions address problems in each layer? That may be a good way you could begin to understand. There's also, by the way, where you think you fit conceptually is also going to affect what agencies you approach, because each has they tend to have a different sort of portfolio about where they're going to operate. Now, the details might leak out more after some congressional briefings, but I wouldn't count on that anytime soon. So I'm not going to read this to you. This is just sort of Brian's take on some high-level examples of needs. Now, this is going to be the challenge for all of you, is what is the need? What is the itch I can scratch? This is a teeny tiny list of those itches that need to be scratched. Some things I'd pull out here, if I were you, is there'll be a heavy amount of cybersecurity needs to protect the networks, to protect the command and control system, to protect everything, because all it takes is one weak link to make all this trillion-dollar investment, frankly, worthless. That's a very real thing. Significant amount of investment in AI for decision-making, for data processing, to help move target data from where it gets detected to where it needs to go quickly. Accelerated test and evaluation. If you're a company who can help with evaluating technologies and getting in the field quickly, that's going to be a big deal. So these are some examples of things that I would encourage you to be thinking about as you try to figure out, what do I do with Shield and how do I become a part of Golden Dome? So we're going to start ramping down here, and I want to do a bit of a drive-by on some of the who's who in the zoo. This is not intended to be a comprehensive view of the competitive landscape of every agency. It's a little bit more than just a couple of companies. But what I want you to think about, though, is what flavors of competitors out there, what flavors of ice cream are available in the store. This is important to understand, because you need to also be aware that because one company is prominent at one agency, that meaning nothing at another one. They have all different niches, they have different expertise. So as you try to go to market and figure out, where do I fit and maybe who I want to team up with, because they're the yin to my yang, it's important to do the homework to understand who's who. So at MDA, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, you see the classic aerospace defense contractors with different expertise, whether it be space-based sensors, whether it be command and control, whether it be interceptors. And you have a whole other layer at every one of these agencies of unique engineering expertise. So I'll call out Parsons and Torch Technology as examples of prominent engineering services firms that work at MDA who have unique systems knowledge of how all that technology works, how it gets integrated, how they can advance it. These are companies that will be very prominent going forward with their unique expertise to help do development, to help do integration. Then you have some boutique companies who have unique technical expertise, whether it be modeling and simulation, whether it be cyber, whether it be test and evaluation, whether it be any number of things. Software development, the software that is going to be used in these systems is not your garden variety software that you're going to ship from some commercial social media application. This is pretty high-end software development. So as you look at this, you need to pause and go, who might be a good teammate to me for what I'm trying to accomplish? Because it will be different for each one. Speaking of which, we'll look at the Space Force. You will see some common threads here. Lockheed Martin here again, no surprise. You'll see some other aerospace guys like L3 Harris, Raytheon, Northrop is back again. You'll see other, again, top system integrators and engineering firms like an SAC will pop up because they have unique expertise in command and control software. You'll see, I'll call the Neo Prime, like a Palantir. Palantir has been having some success with Space Force. In this case, with data infrastructure for space domain awareness. You'll see other middle market guys like MTSI with unique expertise, in this case, defensive cyber operations. So it's, again, important to understand who's who in the zoo so you don't think that one partner can help you get everywhere, because that may not be the case. Everything is situational. Other things, SMDC, just again, to highlight a few other ones who are prominent here. I think you get the idea here is to be cognizant, do your homework of what you're up to. And I think I want to pause here on the neoprimes a bit. So you heard this term, I'm sure, neoprime. What the heck is a neoprime? Neoprimes, I think, have been commonly accepted as companies who are, let's say, newer to the defense market. May not be new, but newer by relative terms. But the big part that gives them an advantage is they come to the market differently. Your typical defense and government contractor, and it's not being disparaging, just being honest about how we operate, comes to the market with, we have know-how, we have mission understanding, we have unique technical expertise, but in many cases is the government is telling them, I want this. Can you do this? Yes, I can do that. Then let's go ahead and work out the details. They may come with an idea, but the Neoprime and then Drool, a Palantir, a Blue Origin, or a Firefly, no, I have a product. It is finished. It is ready to go. Now, they may have to do a lot of customization to it, like Palantir, with their different platforms. But they're coming to it with, I've already made significant investment in things that is ready to go. Now, that's important. If we think about the nature of the defense market as a whole, is we want to do more commercial technology buying. That's not a new trend. It just has been accelerating more in the last year. And the FAR rewrite acquisition approaches are differing, but that favors, in some cases, the neoprime, especially if I want to move fast and get things done. The reality is these guys have an advantage. If it fits their product, if it fits the technology they have, it's more or less ready to go right now or close to it. So as you think about, let's say, your teaming strategies, these are guys you may want to think about depending on the situation. So just don't think about just the classic legacy prime. I'm not taking anything away from them at all. I think they have a valuable role to play that cannot be disputed and cannot be ignored. But the neoprimes definitely, I'd say, spice things up a little bit in terms of how our environment looks. So let's get down to brass tacks. What do we do next, right? I think a lot of companies, at least I've spoken with, are still trying to figure out, well, what do I want to be when I grow up with respect to Shield and Golden Dome? Time is not on your side right now. So the Shield Awards have been done. They're going to start opening up that vehicle for work to start flowing through it. So you need to start figuring out, what's my identity? So think about all these things I just laid on you real quick here. What's the environment look like? What to expect? Who's who in the zoo? What are some examples of needs? This is where, okay, what is my niche? And it's okay to have a niche. Having a niche is not a bad thing. It defines who you are as a business, defines your value. But you have to find what itch you're going to scratch. Who's got that itch? The funding part, I don't think is going to be an issue. That's not going to be a problem for once. But it's that identification of my fit, and then who do I serve, and then to begin to see other primes in that spot right now, whether it be the big guys, middle market, boutique companies, neo primes, whoever it is, who may be worthwhile engaging. Because I'm going to tell you that a lot of these contracts that come out, there is no way that one company does it all. In many cases, it will take teams, big teams, to slay these dragons. So reach out to them. And frankly, the fact that the Shield contract vehicle is so open, if you can dream it, you can do it. Don't wait. Please don't wait. You definitely, you'll have to get into the situation where you're going and you're shredding RFPs, you're doing all that. Which VisibleThread's going to show us what they can do to help you with that part of it, and to be ready, to be truly ready for this. But this is where you want to be aggressive and reach out to them. The good news about this, with the change in attitude and the change of the contract environment, is that is probably more realistic to pull off more now than has been the last few years. If we're honest about it, last few years to engage government has been frankly very difficult. Very difficult. I think that attitude is changing a bit, which is very encouraging for me. So be aware of it and take control of your own destiny. So let's just make sure we don't lose sight of that. But to start to act now is really critical. So some takeaways. I think there's a lot of Shield awards, but I'll be honest with you, I think there's a lot of awardees who aren't that dialed into the military space market. Doesn't mean you can't get there. Just means it's going to take a lift. I think look at Shield as a broad IDIQ, where if you can dream it, you can do it. Where you can work with the customer to create a scope, create an evaluation approach. You can shape things that work. Don't expect MGA to be pushing things out to you for the bid on, because likely if it gets to you, it might be too little too late. It definitely will be a challenge to establish that niche and not react. So please be sure you carve out that niche early and often. But start your plan now. I'll just do a bit of a shameless plug here. FedSavvy Strategy is my business. We've actually partnered with other companies to help specifically on Golden Dome, which has created a network of SMEs and expertise. I'm no stranger to the military space market. Are the partners like Peerless Group or not as well? So we're definitely here ready for you. But I think it's worthwhile to think about this. Got a lot of money that's already programmed right now, and between myself and partner, we have $17 billion of prime contract wins, and many of that is in the military space market. So if you're looking for help on that, don't be shy. I'll put my information here at the end. You can reach out to me, bend my ear. But with that, I think I'm going to turn this over to Kyle, and Kyle's going to walk us through how VisibleThread can be an asset for you to get your piece of $151 billion ceiling for Shield.
Thanks, Brian. Enlightening as always. And then just before I dive in here, just another plug. I'm seeing some good questions come in. Excellent. Keep them coming. I will leave us time to go through those at the end, I promise.
Right.
People who know me think, oh gosh, Kyle has the comms. I can talk, but I am going to be on a budget. Don't worry. So I just want to briefly touch on where I think VisibleThread can help kind of on this tactical execution side of the house. This is not exhaustive, just to be clear. I just want to touch on kind of three kind of classic examples I think would be relevant. Going from a precision shred, customized search dictionaries into more kind of just initial filtering when those task orders drops. How can I more quickly filter down? Because we see so many buying agencies, so many technical areas. I'll talk about that. And then also, the buzzword of the past 18 months, generative AI, authoring, content generation, document interrogation. How can we do so kind of securely, swiftly, et cetera? Especially when we think about shaping those requirements, kind of shaping how we want those buying agencies to perceive my offering and my ability to deliver what they need. So just some screenshots here. If anything that kind of jumps out at you, happy to kind of go deeper on a follow-up discussion. Customized search dictionaries. no Gen AI here. There's 19 technical areas. My niche, maybe I'm really focused on that sensing side of the house. And if I go through a task order, a SOW, a SU, etc., show me every single instance of electro-optical infrared. So we can use these to parse what we can do, and then maybe also on the flip side, look for capabilities that aren't in our niche. I need teaming partners on that kind of kinetic side of the house. So it's not necessarily you don't know what this SOW says. Think of a dictionary as helping you pinpoint what can I do here, where might I want to kind of consider teaming, or what gaps would I need to plug. Great dictionary use case. And then this is just, if you have never seen a shred, you've never seen a dictionary in action, this is a quick screenshot of one of our outputs. So this would be a statement of work shredded at the paragraph level, at the section level. Show me hypersonic, show me machine learning, show me digital engineering. And then over to the right, kind of filtering once again. These might be my niches here in pink. My gaps might be in red, or vice versa. Or if I just need to flag to my authors, hey, this SOW and SU is really heavy on that kinetic front. We need to be ready. What kind of content can we pull from to speak to this? So 100% accurate, no Gen AI there. We believe in a layered approach. It's kind of part one. Part two, maybe I could have flipped the order, but when we think about more quickly filtering down lots of billions upon billions of dollars, to Brian's point, multiple kind of buying agencies and entities, how can I quickly within SAM filter down to these relevant opportunities? Well, with our SAM.gov integration, you can actually save searches. So that's what this screenshot's showing here. I can filter by NAICS code, so not just the main, 541715, if my memory serves me. If we're looking at missile and kinetic weapon development or design, there are NAICS codes associated with that. So you can filter by agency, by keyword, by NAICS codes, and you can have multiple save searches. So if I want to focus on weapons design, boom. Let's take a look what dropped today. If I want to focus more on command and control, I can have a saved search ready to go. And then our SAM.gov kind of integration is updated daily at 9 p.m. Eastern, if that's of interest. So just very quickly filter down. And then on that business alignment column, that color coding, kind of 80 out of 100, kind of amber, 60 out of 100, where does that come from? You can also set up kind of a custom organizational profile. So to Brian's point, I have my niche. I'm showing Department of Defense, but maybe we want to add, those space systems commands, U.S. Army space and missile commands. These are the agencies I know. These are the NAICS codes I can deliver against. Maybe you want to tweak it. Maybe we're going to look at ones that we don't quite have as much experience with, but it's just going to help you narrow that funnel more quickly. We still need to write to it, win it, etc. But in terms of kind of breaking through the noise, really interesting stuff we can do here. And then finally, getting into more generative AI content generation, kind of document interrogation. So this is just a view of kind of our writing window here, where this is prompting using collections of secure proprietary content. So when Brian and really, the US government is really hammering, broadening and deepening the industrial base, that's why I use kind of a subcontracting plan example. There's lots of talk about Gen AI for kind of proposal, drafts, cost volumes, tech volumes, beautiful use cases. Keep doing that. I don't see a lot of use cases around let's generate subcontractor kind of RFPs, teaming agreements, subcontracting plans. And hey, by the way, LLM, I want this subcontracting plan to focus and speak to the US government's need and want to deepen the industrial base. Great use cases, and maybe you can take existing content that you've delivered against in the past to kind of feed this output. So lots of things you can do there. Even, to Brian's point about contact plans, great Gen AI use case. I'm this kind of business who does this kind of work. I want a contact plan to better influence requirements at U.S. Army Space and Missile Command. Great. Before we even get to that kind of proposal or task order writing phase, we can use these kind of functions and features early and often, but we want to do so in this line of work securely, either behind our firewall in a secure cloud. So just an example of what you can do here, what that looks like. If anything jumps out, people want to go into kind of more detail, obviously fire away. But that's hopefully just a quick little snapshot of where I see people doing this today. People have been pursuing business with VisibleThread for years, but we have added emphasis, billions of dollars at stake in VisibleThread. The platform is kind of constantly growing and getting more horsepower. So just wanted to put a bow on that after Brian took us through the broader context. So let's do this. I'm seeing some questions. So Brian, I'm going to recommend we start there.
That sounds great.
So, yeah, Antonio, kicking us off. Good question. So Brian, do you know of any upcoming industry days in Huntsville? They canceled the last 2 small business industry events. It's important that we have a chance to meet decision makers. How can we get in front of them to kind of personally introduce ourselves? This is who we are. Any updates or industry knowledge there that you can share?
Yeah, I'm not aware offhand of any specific, say, Golden Dome related engagements. I think part of the challenge here is there's a lot of different trade associations who have. I would look at this maybe a bit differently, right? So I'm not aware of any specific small business engagements that's going to happen. I don't know if that. I'm sure that'll be the case. There are sometimes some conferences that will happen. For example, the Space and Missile Defense Symposium that will happen later this summer would be a good way to get in front of a lot of the folks. It's right there in Huntsville. I would actually look at other trade events where you see different agencies that are going to be involved with Golden Dome and utilize that. So where you see Space Systems Command, SDA, MDA actually there, that would be a sort of a guerrilla warfare-like approach to let's go to that conference we're going to be and engage them. The other part is, frankly, unfortunately, we're doing the research to find what part of MDA, SSC, SDA, et cetera, do I fit, and then to try to find the people. So that will require some effort. There may be doing some events, I'm not aware of them, but these trade associations are smart enough, I think, to realize that this is a hot topic. Therefore, they are driving speaking engagements that are may not be talking about Golden Dome directly, but if you look at the topic, you can go, well, it's inferred, and the people that are there will be decision makers. So I would suggest look at it a bit differently in that respect. That's a good question. It's definitely going to require some effort, though. This is we're playing the long game. There's a bit of an urgency right now with this fiscal year with $24 billion already appropriated for it, but this is not like it's going to be all over at the end of the year. This is the long game we have to play. Shield has a 10-year contract term with $151 billion of ceiling. So even if you're out of the gate a little bit slower, I wouldn't freak out. It would be a matter of take the time, take a deep breath, and figure out your niche, and then start to engage people based on that. So I hope that, appreciate the question, Antonio. It's a good question. But I think along with it, that actually feeds into Patricia. Good to see you again, Patricia. It's been a while. That kind of folds into the small business top. We should not expect set-asides to be a heavy focus. So if you're looking to play the small business game, get a set-aside, that'll be in part how you shape things. So I think we've all seen the shift of attitude towards small business set-asides. So I think you're going to have to focus on leading with your capabilities and what your fit is, and the small business part becomes secondary. And I wouldn't bank on it, to be quite blunt with you. So just focus on engaging regardless of any sort of small business approach. In terms of, let's see, look at the question here from Patricia. So how they'll be shaped. I recall, so the official communications will be done via the Orbit portal, of which MDA set up. It's an Appian-based portal they set up to focus on Shield. Now, they have said they will post sometimes on sam.gov, so that might help you be just another way of being aware, but you're going to have to use Orbit to get in there. Now, in terms of how these will be distributed, I believe there's no restriction that it will be pushed out the door in terms of who gets what. Because, and want to make sure I emphasize part of this is I made the analogy to a GSA schedule. And I realized that in one way that analogy fails, because on whatever your SIN is, whatever part of the contract you actually are on, you see that. If you're not on there, you don't see it. And here, even if you only could demonstrate competency in 2 of the 18 or 19 task areas, you see everything. Now, it might be up to the discretion, and I don't know this definitively, the discretion of the ordering activity to restrict competition. I only want to see companies with this. They might do it that way. It's very loose. So it's very difficult, I think, to predict with a high level of confidence, except that the aperture is open, that if you only could get 2 of the task areas, you could convince MDA you were the real deal, you could still bet on other things. You still have visibility of them too. So it may be a bit more open than, let's say, the GSA schedule, which was my analogy, which was not a perfect analogy. In terms of market research, will they do market? It's an interesting question. There is nothing I'm aware of that says you must do market research. It is, I think, a matter of if it is in the best interest of the agency to do market research, they will do market research. They may choose to do a set aside. But again, I would not assume that would be the case. I think that becomes part into classic shaping that you may have to do, which you do early stage business development and capture. How can you shape it? How can you encourage that agency that, you know what, I think smalls can do this. Why don't you make this a set aside? But it's going to be really at the agency's discretion with, frankly, no pressure from MDA whatsoever. Listen, it's your decision, guys. You figure out what you want to do. So I hope that answers your question, Patricia. I appreciate that.
Nice question. A couple ones baked in there. Well done there, Pat. Great to see you.
Okay.
Let's see. I know, Brian, you got some well-deserved shout out from Ton Wilson, which is always a good sign.
Hey, Ton,
just in terms of you know, hitting the nail on the head when it comes to greater risk tolerance. We want to move into more traditional contracting approaches. Yes. Kind of shaping those pre-RFP discussions. So important in terms of they've got bid capabilities. How do we communicate that we can do it?
Right. Exactly right. And actually, yeah, and I see, Antonio, you see like the SMD Symposium, right? That is the SMD Symposium, which I'll be the first to admit, I went for the first time last year. That's when they had the gigantic Golden Dome Shield Industry Day last August. It was at the very end of the symposium. Will they do that again? I have no idea. It was bonkers. I've never in my entire career seen Industry Day there were a couple thousand people there. They had, it's attached to the Von Braun Center. I forget the name of it. It was essentially a hockey arena / concert venue that was filled to the brim with people there for Golden Dome issue. People actually flew in just for that. They didn't care about the symposium at all. Like I flew in, like the half my airplane back from Huntsville to DC was, I just flew in for the Golden Dome thing. That was it. That's all they cared about. Like, really? You flew all that way and back? Okay, and I think I want to make more use of my time there, but tomato, to each their own. But I think was very useful. It's a well-done symposium, and everybody who has a role in Golden Dome will be there. So I think at a minimum, if you're serious about this, and actually I thought it was a very well-done symposium. I learned a lot. So some of these trade shows are frankly kind of stupid, and they're just like master of the obvious things like water is wet. We all know this. We're not learning anything here. It was actually very well produced, well worth the time and investment. I would encourage all of you, if you're serious about this, to go to that. And there'll be other events, I'm sure there'll be smaller scale that will be worthwhile going to. But no, that SMD Symposium is definitely worth the investment of time and money. Okay.
Great. I think that's great shout out.
Yep, no problem. It's a good pickup. I appreciate Antonio posting that in there. Okay. Actually, I don't know if VisibleThread, have you guys worked on integration with Orbit, or maybe that's something in work in progress?
Good question, Brian. I don't know off the top of my head. I know that we have other integrations in the pipeline. I'm going to flag that, and if I learn more to share, I can certainly drop that into the follow-up kind of note, so everyone will get the recording. I'll see what I can do if I can't weave that in. Good question. And actually, I learned something new today, Brian, myself, in terms of that'll be kind of the vehicle or the kind of the back-end infrastructure. So good call out there. I'll certainly flag it to the product team.
Right. And there will be some things on SAM.gov. MDA was a little loose about that. So we'll see something, but the portal of record is definitely Orbit.
Good shout out.
All right, very good. I guess that might be it. So
yeah, last call for questions, I would say. If not, what I'll do, Brian, I'll give you the last word. And just before I do that, to kind of put a bow on this, thank you everyone for taking the time. You are busy people, so we always appreciate you joining these webinars. We certainly hope you got a lot out of it. Just to recap, you will receive a recording. If you didn't attend the entire event, don't worry, you'll still get kind of from start to finish. That's kind of part one. We'll also ask you for your feedback. What did you like? What would you like to see differently in the future? We want to make sure that this content is always relevant, actionable, and a good use of your time. So we always appreciate you taking the time and just giving us a little bit of feedback there. So you'll receive that kind of ping as well. And so, you know, we really pride ourselves on delivering this kind of great competitive kind of background intel that Brian so definitely takes us through, and then kind of weaving in the tech into the equation is so important, as most people in the room can do a lot of what Shield is looking for, but it's how do we get all that content, all that knowledge down into whether it's writing, orals, attending the right trade shows. So I certainly learned a lot. Thank you again. Brian, anything else to add? You get the last word there, my friend.
No problem. No, I also want to say thank you everyone for attending this, and I'm dead serious about this. If you've got questions for me offline, don't be shy about doing that. So got my info up here. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me at LinkedIn pretty easily. I'm a little loud in LinkedIn, so it's hard to escape me there. But I welcome any questions you have. Happy to talk offline, and nothing else. Wish you all the best of luck on Shield. There's a lot of opportunities here. I'm bullish about it. I tend to be very conservative in my point of view in terms of business, but this one I'm very encouraged about. So, but thanks. I mean, also, frankly, any feedback you got, what you liked, what you disliked, just don't hold back. You won't hurt my feelings. Ask my wife. I don't have any. So, the feedback is always constructive and helpful. So, and actually, Kyle, thanks for letting me do this with you and VisibleThread.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks all.
Thank you.